everybody. Welcome to Goose's Disney Pod, and we are now in the year 2012 on the the Pixar season, and we're at Brave. And my guest today is Katharyn Henson, my good friend from New York, now in the UK. How are you, Katharyn?
I'm feeling this year has caused me to have to be brave, not to be cheesy right out the gate, but like, everything's connected, Ray.
So a little background: Katharyn Henson was like really climbing the ranks in New York City, and you decided to take like a couple of months in Europe right at the end of last year, correct? The end of 2019.
Yeah, well, it was the beginning of 2020. I was like, I'm going to go to London for 6 weeks because then I was going to Australia because I was in these comedy festivals over there. So I figured, I was like, why not just, my day job had kind of ended, not the one at the dungeon, but a different one. And I was just like, you know what, just go see. Like, why not? It's just 6 weeks. I also and we can get into it, but basically it all kind of was a catalyst of The Fringe. Which is
in Scotland, which is why I thought of you for this movie. Yes.
Yeah. So basically, just to kind of summarize as quickly as possible, I had never been out of America before August of 2019, ever. And I went and did The Fringe in Scotland, and that sort of opened up the world to me. Like, I was like, oh, there's stand-up outside of New York. There's a lot of opportunities that I would have never thought of. And I also met a man, an Irish man, who, we sort of connected. We connected on the last night of The Fringe. We fucked, but it wasn't just like a one night stand.
It was a nice fuck.
Yeah, no, I thought it'd be a one night stand because I hadn't even talked to the guy the whole month. But then I don't know, it really evolved. And then he visited me in New York and we fell in love. And the day he left, when he was leaving, that's when my day job was like, look, we're not going to need you by the end of the year. And I wasn't really feeling happy in New York since coming back from The Fringe and sort of seeing that there's more out there. So I thought, he was moving from Ireland to London in January. And he was like, look, if you want to go, I'll go with you. We can just see. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to go see about stand-up in London. I'm going to go see about this guy. And ultimately, it was a good choice. I mean, I'm now married to him. And I have a career here, even in lockdown, that I did not have in New York.
Yeah, that's great. That it's so funny because you were supposed to only go for a few weeks, and because probably even if everything didn't work out, you probably would still have been stuck there. Like, even if you were like, I'm not happy here, because you were in Australia when everything shut down, right?
Yeah, and that was that. It's even weird thinking about that now because that's very far. The UK is 5 hours from New York. I lived in New York 15 years. That's comfortable.
Yeah.
Australia is on the other side of the world, and that's kind of scary. When you really are in that every day and you can't leave and you've never been there and you don't really know. I knew some Australian comics, but we weren't allowed to go anywhere or do anything, because it was under a really harsh lockdown. So it was just pretty scary. I mean, it was 6 months there, because once things did reopen, the flight prices skyrocketed for people getting out of there. So they were 5 to 10 grand for a one-way ticket.
Wow. Jesus.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh, I'm not doing that. I don't.
Yeah. Can't we walk there?
Yeah, no, exactly. I was like, is there an A train that I can get on, please? Yeah. So yeah, it was just weird. I mean, it's just so bizarre to think about it because it was basically going to Scotland once changed my entire life.
And I often feel this movie, I kind of feel like this movie's kind of about destiny and stuff, and what is your destiny? And I kind of feel like someone knew what was coming, some force in the universe knew what was coming, and they made you go to Scotland, and they made you fall in love with Europe, because right now New York is a fucking dead zone, and you 100% made the right choice going to Europe when you did. Even though you were trapped in Australia for that many months, I think things are so much better over there than they are here right now.
Yeah, it's really.
And maybe I'm wrong because you're there, so maybe.
Well, no, I mean, to be fair, we are in a lockdown again, but this is my 5th international lockdown. It's sort of at this point, but the fact I'm finally where I'm going to be living, it makes it so much easier because I spent the first 4 in places that were not in any sense permanent. Either in Australia or living with people here, I've been scammed by some Italians now, you know what I mean? I got that under my belt. But it's a lot easier being in your own home. And I think the whole time, I've had to sell everything out of my New York apartment from here and break my lease with my landlord, and that was really difficult for me just because I never thought I wouldn't see my New York apartment again or like my stuff,
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's like I've started trying to, I guess, look at the good even when it's bad. And I'm seeing like I got lucky in a lot of really big ways that even through all of that being like hard, I didn't really take stock of, I guess, which is like sort of what you said. I like randomly decided to come here when I did, but ultimately that, given what happened with coronavirus, is better, but it was an accident,
Yeah. And the way, like, I mean, I did a show yesterday in Midtown, an outdoor show, but then I'm walking home and there's just nobody walking the streets. It's like, I don't know if it's like the Will Smith movie, I Am Legend.
Right.
That's what it felt like. I was like, how is this Manhattan? Like, there's just nobody in the street. I don't even know how they're going to reopen things here because it's like nobody's left. It's like an abandoned city. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because I didn't have that much time in London because I was in London and then I went to Australia. So I got to see it for basically 6 weeks. Yeah. But my frame of reference is really more like the last few months. And it's dead, but it's not dead. But like the housing market dropped. So I got very lucky. I got a great apartment, but that's like what happened in New York though,
all the fancy apartments are plunging in Manhattan. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's funny to be on those Facebook groups because you see somebody post a studio for like 1,600 and people aren't taking shit anymore. They're like, no, I wouldn't rent that for 500. Like, that doesn't look cozy. That looks like a shithole, and it's funny to see people pop off because we were living like that. We were living with like subpar standards. And now I don't think that's going to happen anymore.
It was becoming unsustainable because a lot, especially when you look at comedians, we were living in, I'm lucky, my situation, but a lot of people were living in unlivable situations, making little to no money and working for free most nights, while the price of living and the price of food and the price of going out was going up, Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that was sort of one of the reasons also why I decided to come over here was because I had met some comics at the Fringe and I was like, oh wait, you're paid to do comedy? I was like, I don't compute. I'm struggling here. And I mean, in my experience so far, it's like, I've not only been paid, but I've been treated with respect. Like I serve a purpose that is of value, and, I mean, the club, one of the main clubs I work here, they pay you, they give you like a drink token, and they give you a tape of both of your sets.
Yeah.
Like,
oh, wow.
They film it. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? I was like, I'm sorry. I'm like,
they
how much
treat
do
you
I
like
owe
human
you?
beings. Yeah.
Yeah. And like, and then they like are happy. They actually ask you for like, they're like, can you pick a clip or can we use any clips from our tapes? We'd love to promote it on our Instagram. You know what I mean? And you're like, oh yeah, okay, promote me. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just like, this is absurd to me. Just given it's just the opposite of New York,
Well, Well, the funny thing is, like, my show, I was doing a show in my backyard. I don't know if you saw the photos on Instagram or I was doing a show in my backyard, and people would tip me, and they would tip me so much money I could pay the comedians. And comedians were like shocked we're getting paid. And I'm like, yeah, people are really appreciate us now. And at the bar show I do, the outdoor bar show I do in Midtown, the whole staff is nice. Everyone's treated like a king. And it made me realize, like, when things go back to normal, if that ever actually happens, I'm not going to work with people who disrespect me. I'm just not going to be disrespected anymore. You don't have to pay me, but like, there is a way to do this and be content and work together and not just be treated like shit every 3 seconds.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you were in this a lot longer than I've been, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like you've been through several waves of change in New York.
Yeah.
So it's like, I only ever knew the kind of one way.
And it was kind of getting more and more toxic. Right before this went down, the city, I thought the scene was, I was kind of getting sick of doing stand-up because everybody was so toxic. And I kind of felt like, at least I feel like I needed that break.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I don't know. Like you sort of mentioned, my path just sort of ended up. I never thought I'd ever leave New York.
Yeah.
But it's like I'm happy at this point to have done what I did in New York because I don't think I would stand out if I hadn't. Does that make sense?
No. When you do, because you started in New York, right? We're gonna get into your when you start in New York and your primary experience is New York, when you go to other cities, you're different. Like when I did a show in Chicago, I was on a show with like a lot of big Chicago comedians, and I'm not trying to be arrogant, but I could feel the air in the room change the minute I went up, because people realized like, oh, this person's been through some shit. This person's like a comic. This isn't like our neighbor doing stand up. And I don't know, do you feel that when you're on stage? You could be cocky for a second.
I mean, well, I guess it's like we have, dealt with so much shit to go up. And like, even like, okay, so this was something when I first came here that just blew my mind. And, so basically, there was a club and they kind of had a team, pretty similar to like the way, like say the Pear or the Lantern has a team, you know what I mean? Like, but like nice, they're nice. But what I say that because, you know what I mean? There's different personalities, but, so it's like they'd help out running the show. There's no barking here, right? For example, which I also was like, why doesn't anybody bark? But whatever, we'll get into that, I guess. And these shows, the guy would put people up from out of town, but I'd see the people who help seating or like whatever, and they're going up almost on weekends, like to packed rooms, and they've been doing stand-up 6 months. And my mind was I was like, if I told New York comics they'd get on a fucking airplane right now to hear like rooms that are full with brand new comics, which it's like, we all, and they helped out, but it was like more of that team than like a pro. Like they weren't putting pros in between. So it was really like a show of like very new comics and then like 2 people who may have more experience. And then I was like, this is absolutely out of fucking control because there's like 60 people in this room, and so that I found like, it seems like here people are like spoiled with great stage time. So they don't have to necessarily work the way we've had to work to get good, to be booked on shows that have more than 3 people in the audience,
Yes. And even when you do get good, if, I mean, we would tell a story like, if the booker or the bartender just doesn't like your hair that day, you're treated like shit or you're not invited back. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah. It's just.
Sorry.
No. So you can say it. What's up?
No, I mean, it's just I've been told no for a variety of reasons at a variety of clubs in New York that like I would maybe work the produced shows regularly.
I know one right off the bat. I mean, what's her name? The big girl said to you, these people are all gone now. But like, I was using you on my show and then they wouldn't use you for paid spots because you were dirty. And meanwhile, they have, other comedians up there talking about raping women in the ass and shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But I mean, what's funny is like, something like that for me, I was like, all right, well, I'll take the feedback. And then I tried to write other stuff. And then I was like, it was just sort of more of the same. And I'm like, look, I guess this is who I am. Like, James Mattern, I brought him up on another podcast. I don't know if you listen to his podcast, but like I don't listen to podcasts, but I do watch his clips. And, he just did something recently, like, to not try to be edgy, but if you are edgy, just be edgy. And like, that spoke to me because it's like, this is just who I am. I used to smoke meth. I used to work at a sex dungeon. I like to fuck dudes who look like me with long hair because I want to fuck myself. I don't know. You know what I mean? And they like that here, in the UK, I am basically working the Comedy Cellar of the UK. So it's interesting to like see that I didn't have to change for that. They just liked that. They were like, we want you and what you're doing. But meanwhile, other clubs, I struggled to get unpaid late night spots, even with a vouch from several comics who worked the club, even if the booker saw me do well, even though I was like hosting their weekend 5 o'clock shows, whatever, like and you know, and it's just, I'll never understand it. I don't pretend to know. I guess I'm just not for them, but it's nice to finally be validated, I guess, for what I do.
Yes. Yeah. And that's the thing. It was getting, I guess, because so many people out here in New York were so ingrained in their ways. It was almost like, you know, what I would get so frustrated because like some places be like, what needs to happen for you to like take me seriously? Do they have to like carry me out of the room like I'm a king after myself? Like I don't understand. Like I'm doing good. I'm very nice to everyone, and yeah, it does feel like there people are just like, this is the way I feel, and I'm never changing. And I don't really feel like that's a good way to help run a scene or to help produce a club, you know, or run a club.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably just gonna get a lot of the same type of thing, and if that's what's bringing in people to your club, I get. But it's
that was the crazy, but there weren't a lot of places.
I know. People. That's what I mean. So it's sort of like now, who knows what's going to happen, right? Because it's like, I think businesses are struggling, and it's like, well, you might need to book the thing that would be the draw that might be different, like that might not be what the cookie cutter thing you always had. I don't know,
People, I do think when clubs reopen, they have to change their strategies. I just don't know if they're going to be able to, but if they're not, someone else will open and they'll drive them out of business,
Yeah.
I told the comedians, like, I don't want any clubs to go under. And I'm like, you understand, like, if all the clubs go under here in New York, that's just not, people aren't just going, well, that's it, it's over, no more comedy, let's just all become accountants. New places will open. So it's like, you're not going to lose stage time no matter what happens.
Yeah, I mean, that is New York City in a nutshell. Do you know what I mean? Something closes and another thing takes its place.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's sort of the beauty of New York, really, is that it's always, like a friend of mine who has lived in New York but isn't there now, he was like, New York's over. And I'm like, New York's over for right now.
Yeah.
But it always comes back. Like, it's just, what it does.
It just needs, people thinking differently. It's going to be a different business strategy when, when people start going back out or start moving back. You just have to have different business strategies. And, if you don't, you will be done. Not you, Katharyn, but, the club owners and the business owners, you'll be done, but the city won't be. People will adapt and they'll thrive.
Yeah. And I think people are probably more, just to punctuate this, I think they're more open now. Do you know what I mean? Because we've been so like, a little bit more ready for something not like what they were used to,
Well, yeah, I get the walls have come down. Like what I mean by that is like the bar show I do, David Tell's there. And Mark Norman's there, and it's almost like they're back to square one. So all the walls and like all the rules that people, it's kind of like done, and it's like everyone's back to square one over here. So
I mean, when you're not going up all the time, the first lockdown, it kind of shook me because I was going so like hard, like all the time. But after going through a few lockdowns, now I'm just kind of like, look, when it opens, stand-up will happen again. But I can't, so I can be okay and find other things to do right now.
And you can't, you can't rush it, because I feel that's the main problem with the United States is they keep rushing it. And I think we're going to be in a perpetual state of just not really being open because everyone here is so impatient. I feel like people in Europe are a little bit more patient. I feel like a lot of people where you are have your attitude right now.
Yeah, I mean, I'll put it this way. I've done Australia and I've done the UK. And Australia, they were very compliant with the rules and basically, had eradicated COVID from like where I had been locked down. But it's still in Australia and it's still like cropping up and spreading. Meanwhile, in the UK, they're not as compliant, which is why they're in their like third lockdown right now. I think they are somewhat similar to America a little bit.
Okay. All right.
Just in that, like, people are over it. They're ready. Like, people are out right now, but we're supposed to be like in a hardcore lockdown, Yeah. So it's interesting to see what will happen. I don't really.
Are there still like illegal outdoor shows going on there? Or?
There were really like when I did an outdoor show here once. It was my first show back in stand-up after all those months in Australia. In a park, it could barely even be called a show. Because that was the thing. The clubs were open. Clubs have been open here. They were open for 6 weeks. So 6 weeks, my first 6 weeks back here, I was doing stand-up. Then it shut down again. Then it opened for 10 days and stand-up began again. And then it shut down again. And it's been shut down since then.
Okay.
But clubs, like the Comedy Store didn't open, but like Top Secret opened and bars were doing it. And like, there's different tiers for different parts of England. It's very confusing. So that's what I mean. It's sort of like there hasn't been a unified government strategy here. So it is a little twisted.
So it's kind of becoming more like the United States, where people like, I don't give a shit. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. But who's to say what's going to end up happening,
Yeah, who's to say? But New York is it's a shit show. You're not missing anything. Yeah. When did you start doing when did you start doing comedy? What got you into it?
Do we count this year?
Yes, I always count this year. I tell people, yes, yeah.
I started,
unless you didn't do it at all, but you've done it. So
no, I did do it. Yeah. So I pretty much, I would say like at maybe right at the end of 27, beginning of 28. So I guess, and I'm turning, God, I can't believe this. I'm turning 33 tomorrow.
Well, I'm turning 40 in 2 weeks. So.
Okay, but see, you look 33, so you got that going for you.
Well, you look 23, so.
I love it. Okay, and I was going for 13, but you know what? Whatever.
No, that's a little creepy. Let's stick to legal age.
Hey, I watched a cartoon last night.
Oh, that's
I feel
true.
like my youth.
And we're doing a podcast about a cartoon. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm really bad at math. 5 years, I guess.
2008, you said?
No, when I was 28.
Oh, 28. Yeah, 5 years.
32,
Yeah. So you've
30,
been doing it as long as I've been doing it full time, because I did it part time up until 2015.
Yeah.
And now I've been full time ever since. I mean, as full time as you can be in 2020, but you get my point.
Yeah, right. No, exactly. Well, that's what's funny is like I basically went to full time January 2020, and then immediately it was like, no, actually, you're doing nothing. You don't even get to work at the sex dungeon anymore. You don't have a job. But but I basically I don't know. People already thought I did. They thought I did something. Like when I'd go to parties, they'd be like, "Do you do stand up? Or are you a writer or whatever?" And at the time, I was doing absolutely nothing. My job was to be this dipshit's girlfriend. Like he owned a bar. I'd sit at the bar. I was miserable. I had nothing going on. Like and I'm a pretty creative and active person, but I just had nothing I was interested in. And I said to him, maybe I should try stand up. And he was like, why do you want to do that? And then we broke up. And after we broke up, I pretty much Googled how to do stand up comedy. And Rick Chrome's Comedy Cellar class came up. And so I signed up for that. Do you know that class?
Yes, it was at the Cellar, right?
Yeah, I mean, but see, this was me Googling like how to do stand up. So I forked over $400 to do this class, and because if I pay money for something, I will do it, but I have like zero accountability to myself. So otherwise, Yeah. So I did it, and then I did the class, and then afterwards I like asked him, I was like, how do you actually do this? Because it can't just be taking this class. And he was like, well, you got to go to open mics. And then it kind of tumbled. It started that way. I went to a few open mics, realized I was older than everybody there, didn't want to go back to high school. So I was like, fuck this. And that's when I found out about barking. And I started barking for Mike Merkovich.
Yes, at the Pear. That's where I met you. I met you at the Pear.
Yes. Yeah. So that's how that came into fruition.
Yeah, and that's where you met Melissa Diaz and Alex Engelbert and that whole crew.
Yeah, well, Engelbert, I can't even remember where I met Engelbert, but I'm moving rooms.
That's okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. And what was your childhood like? Because I know you did meth. When did you start doing meth?
That was when I was 17. And
so it wasn't your childhood. Okay. Good.
Yeah, no, I didn't come out of the womb with a meth pipe, but I wish I did. That would have been exciting. No, like I was born in Reno, and then we moved to California when I was 10, and then when I was 15, I ran away to Chico, California, for 10 days. And when I got caught, I was driven from Chico to Utah, and I went to this like wilderness camp for 6 weeks, followed by
to teach you to be a good girl, basically.
Yeah. To reform the bad. My mom and I had creative differences, so
okay.
And then after that, I went to a Mormon therapeutic boarding school.
Oh wow! And did any of that stick or no? It just
the anxiety stuck. Yeah,
okay.
I would say from that experience. Sure. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I always feel like none of that shit works. Like you can't.
No.
It doesn't. It just all you're doing is like creating a bigger monster that's going to come out.
Right. There's no one size fits all. It was like a therapy, and like even though we had our own separate therapists, it was a punishment-based therapy system, which like doesn't work. No. That's not what therapy is. And so it was actually like a pretty horrendous experience. And it very much altered, the person that I was to become more the person that I am. Mm-hmm. So, as all things do, but it at 15, you know what I mean? It really like, you learn a lot when you go to a place like that about the world.
Yeah. Well, I also feel like when a kid is like, not that you were trouble, but kids like, I always feel like negative reinforcement doesn't work with like kids like that. I just feel like, if a kid is like, smoking cigarettes at like 12 and you beat him over the head with a hammer not to do it, they're just going to move to the fucking crack pipe at 13 because, it's right. Not need positive reinforcement. They don't need like, you're a fucking idiot or you're a scumbag, your life's going to be ruined. They don't need any of that. Yeah. They need like something positive or a positive outlook. And so many times people just use negative reinforcement, and then the kid's like on Skid Row at homeless. Oh, how did that happen? I don't know, because you were an asshole to the fucking guy.
Yeah, I mean, there were definitely people in this program that it was like, what their problems were not to be punished. Girls who had like eating disorders, who had been adopted, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So they had issues with the fact that they didn't know their real parents. So then they're acting out. And then you're like, why is a child being punished for that? You know what I mean? Like that should be talked
for not
through.
Knowing their real parents. Yeah.
Yeah. Or being confused, like in a teenager and being a fucking asshole. I mean, it was a wild, really wild, horrific experience. Like my best friend there killed herself like a few years after she got out. Two people that I still know from there have become doctors or psychiatrists very specifically to do the opposite of what place did for them, So it's a pretty, and like that place has since changed their name, so they can like still operate, but not have like the reputation that they had, I guess.
Like destroying children's lives before they can even begin. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So it was just a lot of very weird, like it was a level system, like you, levels 1 through 4, and like level 1 you couldn't you're wearing color coded uniforms to distinguish what level you're on. So like on level 1 you're not allowed to wear shoes, you're not allowed to wear tampons, you had to earn these privileges.
You know what, tampons?
Yeah
Holy shit. That's fucking rough.
You had to wear a pad, right? And like, which is like pretty disgusting, like in Arizona, you know what I mean? In the summer, like you are just sweat. It's like sweat and blood diaper, And this one time, like this girl, she acted out a lot. She like took a used pad and left it like on the stairs that went up to the school. And, nobody would admit to it, right? So one of the teachers found it or whatever. Nobody would admit to it. So they made us all go into our rooms, and the pad had wings, so they made us go into our rooms, face the wall, and we had to pull down our pants and bend over, and any girl who was wearing pads with wings was punished for like the next month.
What were you punished?
Like usually it would be work hours, and work hours, like if you get a work hour, you have to work for an hour, and then you also have to wake up at 5 a.m. and sit in study hall. And if you get 3 work hours, you lose all activities on the weekend. So it's like,
and this was all. This is just insane that adults are. This sounds like the world's worst porn movie. They all have to pull down their pants to see if they have a tampon.
Yeah,
like,
no,
Jesus
I mean,
Christ.
It's basically like, I just actually on New Year's Eve, because there's nothing to do in a lockdown. I watched Girl Interrupted because it was on TV, hilarious. And like, but I mean, it's basically like children Girl Interrupted, you know, I mean, or but like way worse, you know, because there was nobody as insane as Angelina Jolie there, you know. It's like there's teenagers who have issues, you know, some more than others, some, you know, with diagnosed like mental disorders, you know, that need to be treated with like medication from an actual physician, you know, and like they didn't have like a registered nurse on staff giving us medication. They had a doctor who would prescribe it, and then our medication was given to us by people who they hired from a newspaper. You know, they put out an ad to hire staff. So, and this is all like, I wrote this, I was in, you know, when I was in college, I took this class called Drugs, Culture, and Deviance. And, you know, our final, I ended up writing this like 50-page paper about it. And I interviewed 2 of the former staff and several of the former students who went there with me. And like, the professor was not expecting 50 pages, but it was essentially a case study. And he was just like, you know, I think he was just like, you get an A because this is like, it sounds like you went through some shit, you know?
Yeah. He's like, you bled for this A, you get it. Yeah. Like, holy shit. Yeah.
So, you know, but it's crazy because places like that do still exist, and it does. I firmly believe it does more harm than good. You know? And a lot of false advertising, you know, of what the promises, false promises of how, you know, what this, it's supposed to be a reformation. Like they'll tear you down by level like 2, you know, and then by level 3, they're rebuilding you into like the perfect daughter, you know, and it's just insane. Really.
It's wild. Let me ask you this. Were you into like cartoons or Disney movies as when you were growing up?
I liked Ren and Stimpy, which yeah, my mom,
which explains your sense of humor. Yeah, which explains your material. Yeah.
I loved Ren and Stimpy. My mom thought it was inappropriate, but I was a big fan. And then that's like the one. Well, I did the Saturday morning cartoons, of course.
Yeah.
You know, I got up at 6:30 to get my cereal ready, mixed, you know, because I do multiple types of cereal together, mixed all up. So like by 7 a.m. when like Pepper Ann or whatever the fuck came on, I was like ready for the next 4 hours to be glued to the TV. But as an adult, the one that I have absolute appreciation for, that I think is just pure genius, is the Venture Brothers.
I gotta watch that. Everyone who watches it doesn't just say it's good; they say it's incredible.
It's out of control. I haven't been keeping up. Obviously, I mean, you know, things kind of.
Yeah, well, they got canceled for a little bit, and now they're about to get uncanceled.
Oh, really? Well, yeah. I mean, I love the Venture Brothers. It is so clever. So just at the end, a season finale, I think it's season 3, there's a school dance, and they play a song by one of my favorite bands, a band, it's actually an English band called Pulp, right?
Oh yeah, I like Pulp. Yeah. I'm not too, Pulp. I don't know a lot about them, but I like them. Everything I hear from them is good.
Well, I went and saw Pulp at Radio City Music Hall, right? They played 2 nights some years ago. And when like the Jarvis Cocker, that's the lead singer of Pulp, he was on the stage and he was like, I just want to give a shout out, you know, to Doc Hammer, who's one of the creators of the Venture Brothers, right? Because, you know, he's in the audience tonight and this one's for you. And then they played the song. It's called Like a Friend. It's one of my favorite songs. And I just like lost my mind because I was like, I'm here seeing one of my favorite bands and one of the like people that I admire the work of is somewhere in this fucking room. Yeah. So, you know, I think that was 2012. Good year.
Oh, wow. Fucking that sounds like a fun concert. So Venture Brothers.
Yeah.
Had you seen Brave before?
No. Why? No. Okay. Do you think I?
I don't know.
I'm like, you know what? Actually, yeah, I have.
Maybe at the sex dungeon, some guy was like, "Can you dress up like the girl?" To one of the girls, "Can you dress up like one of the girls from Brave and beat me over the head with a fucking, I don't know, bow?"
You know, you're not far off, to be honest.
Did anyone ever ask, like, can somebody dress up like Jasmine or Belle or something?
No, but they did like the schoolgirl thing, and it did get weird. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe some guy saw a girl with red hair. Is like, hey, let's watch Brave together and punish me. I don't know. You know. What did you think of it though? You just saw it. You saw it last night. What did you think of it?
I saw it last night. So it's funny because like right when it started, I was like, I said to my husband, I was like, you know, this isn't going to be as good as The Lion King, you know, the caliber of like the Disney cartoons I grew up with. I mean, you know, like Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast, The Lion King, like the fucking works. And it's not, right? It's a whole different thing. But with that said, I really enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun with, I like the dogs, the little brothers. there were some moments where I actually like genuinely laughed, and I felt like very whimsical, being like a kid again. Like you kind of realize, I mean, I know you don't because you're surrounded by kid stuff. Like I see a Pokemon poster in the background of your screen, but like it really is nice to sort of go to another world that isn't an adult world, sometimes, and kind of let go. And ultimately, I thought the message was a very like a little more grown up than I guess some of the other Disney films I'm used to.
Oh yeah, well that's what the thing with Pixar is. They're a little more grown up messages. I thought this was the first Disney movie where it was actually about a daughter and her mother. Usually the mother's dead or evil or missing, or I don't. This is the first one where the family is actually together. They're not like a broken family, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you I know you said you and your mom had creative differences. Did you see any parallels between this girl and her mother and your mother? Or
it's funny that you asked it, because I did get like, I don't know if I'm just getting older and getting more sentimental and emotional generally, like the things I'm getting misty-eyed at these days. But I mean, yes and no, like the thing is my mom, like, yeah, like we are very different people. My mother, if you met my mother, you would be like, how did this happen? Because my mom she's blonde, first of all. And I'm brunette. She's very kind of classy. Like she smoked one cigarette in her life. She tried weed one time with a woman named Penny Pinkerton. You know what I mean? Like that sounds made up, so she wanted success and achievement from me and whatever, which it's like I've also ultimately grown to want, but like we wanted very different things for me in my life. But at the same time, my mom was very supportive. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it was like by the end.
So she wasn't like, you have to get, well, you're already married, but you have to get married at 16. And if you don't, I'm going to beat you up.
Right. Yeah. Like her rules were basically like, you need to finish high school, you need to go to college, and then you need to get a job, which I guess, even now I'm like, college is debatable for me. I don't know if any 18 or 17-year-olds should be deciding what they want to study.
You know what? I kind of wish I didn't go to college.
Me too.
I wish I went straight into stand-up. I think I'd be a lot happier.
No, well, I don't know if I wish I went into stand-up, but it's like, I'm in all this debt. It's like, ultimately.
It's just, what is the, unless you like, you want to be a doctor, and you were in high school, like interning, and I know you just devote your life to being a doctor, you devote your life to being a lawyer. That person, yes, you should go to college, 110%. Put all your. But if you're like, I don't know what I want to do, or I want to do stand up, or I want to act, or whatever, or I want to be in porn, do not go to college. Like, just fucking see the
unless
world.
You want to do business for your porn, you know what I mean? Make sure you know how to run your own business. But like, no, that's exactly what happened to me. Before I went to college, I wrote all the time. I went to college for writing, and now I've never written again.
Oh, that was me. That was me.
Yeah.
That was me. I was like writing novels in high school and college. They were so unsupportive and negative that like, I don't write as much. I'll write articles sometimes. I got it in a salon, but like, I just do stand up. I don't write as much as I should.
Yeah. I mean, I found that I got so much feedback that I almost became confused, and it clouded what my original vision was. Like, it's like I heard too many voices that were not my own then, and everybody had a different opinion. So it was like, you didn't know what to do anymore. So it became, and I'm finding that still kind of sitting with me, because, I've been wanting to write a memoir for a while. I graduated with a degree in nonfiction. And, stand-up's not happening right now. And I, while here, like I signed with this agent, and they're like, okay, we need to talk about what your other goals are while stand-up's not happening. Yeah, no, thank you. No, it was pretty cool. Like, but she's like, you need to figure out how you want to construct this memoir. And then we can talk to like, a literary agent that works with us, whatever. Right. And I sometimes just become crippled with the process of trying to even do that, based, I think, on my experiences in college. It just doesn't flow anymore. It's almost like I want a first draft to be a third draft, No,
college to me, I thought it was when I look back at my life, college was the exact wrong thing at the exact wrong time. I needed to kind of travel more. I needed to see the world. I needed to be more I needed more interest. And it was just the wrong, everyone I met in college was the wrong person to meet. It kind of took away a lot of my creativity, which I didn't get back until I went to Caroline's. And I kind of almost accidentally fell ass first into working at Caroline's back in 2003. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's sort of what happened to me too, in the sense that it's like I didn't start doing anything creative again until I started stand-up.
Yeah.
Which was very different than what I used to do. But, I always sort of wrote with humor. So I'm kind of like, okay, I guess maybe it was all leading here. But it's a lot of money to spend on something that I ultimately feel unsatisfied with the experience, and yeah, I have the degree, and I guess that sort of helped me with some jobs, but I'll say they were never jobs that I found super fulfilling. I mean, they helped me pay my rent, but I wasn't like, oh, thank God I have this degree because then I found this job I love because of it,
Yeah.
But
I mean, okay, I had the degree, but at this point, I'm going to turn 40, like I said, in a few weeks. If I go out in the workforce to get a job, in entertainment, like I have a BA in communications, that's not even worth the paper it's printed on at this point because I don't have any experience. So if I decide to fuck comedy, I want to pursue a career of my degree, no one's going to hire me at this point. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, and I don't even think people would have hired me when I was 23 with that degree. So what was the fucking point,
Yeah. I mean, yours is a little bit better than mine. Mine's a BA in liberal arts with a concentration in nonfiction writing.
Yeah.
So, which is basically if I'm going to be honest, I spent a lot of time in college plagiarizing myself. So I would write a story and then I basically rewrite my same story for a different class. And I did that for 4 years. There's one story I wrote about a man with a mustache, and I I morphed it around, but it was essentially the same premise the entire time. It was almost like I just was evolving a joke for 4 fucking years because I was like, I don't want to do this work. I don't like this. I don't care about this. I really majored in smoking cigarettes in the courtyard. I don't know anything more than I did when I entered college. In fact, this is sort of, I can't tell how I feel. I had to liquidate everything in my New York apartment. I think I mentioned that, right?
Yes.
From here.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And I had saved all my syllabi, right? From college, all my notebooks, because I thought I fucking paid for this. So I'm going to be able to have it at my disposal. And all of that got thrown away. And I know this sounds psycho, but I've woken up in the middle of the night feeling like, did I have something in those notebooks that maybe there was a bit in there or something, or I wish, but it's also fuck it, right? I guess you just got to let go.
That was a different person in a different world.
Yeah.
And now we're in you're a whole new person. Yeah. So
thank you. I need
you might see an idea that that was such a good idea, but are you gonna give justice to it now because you're in a different place than whoever came up with that idea back in the day?
Right.
But let's review the plot. For people that haven't seen Brave is about a girl. She's a Scottish princess. She wants to be a warrior. The mom wants her to shut the fuck up and get married.
Yeah.
The princess gets pissed at her. She finds a witch. They get a spell. She turns her mom into a bear. The dad starts hunting the mom, thinking it's some fucking wild bear. Shenanigans happen. There's a big fight between the evil bear and the mom bear, and then the mom becomes human and live happily ever after. So you've been to Scotland. How accurate were the accents in this film?
I was thinking about you when it was what you were going to ask. I mean, Mark thought he recognized an actual Scottish.
Well, I think one of them is
the dad.
The dad. I think the dad's a comedian. I have the Wikipedia page.
Billy Connolly.
Yes, he's a famous. He's one. He's he is the Louis. Well, he doesn't rape anybody. He is the Bill Burr. George Carlin of Scotland.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. Aside from that, I don't know. There were some funny. There was a funny moment where they couldn't understand one of them at all. I think. When they were in the hall when they were presenting all the
with the different princes and stuff.
It was a running joke though that they couldn't understand something some guy said, and I would say that is very akin to my experience in Scotland because sometimes you're just I have no idea. All that sounded guttural, stomach noises, not actual words,
Yeah. Yeah, no. Yeah, so people because I've never been to Scotland. People do kind of sound like stuff like like that guy.
It's a very thick accent, and if you don't like grow up with it, I just think you don't there's this comedian that my husband showed me, and I don't watch a lot of comedy, but his name I think is Kevin Bridges, and he's from Scotland, and he's very funny. I can tell he's very funny, but there are some things that I just don't like. Mark will be watching it and laughing hysterically, and I'm like, I have no idea what that man just said. But like, he's super famous here, but apparently went to America and had the same kind of issue, because it was just like he had to slow it down to make Americans understand what the fuck he was saying, Yeah. So it's sort of been interesting to suddenly be immersed where like the Bronx accent is not the number one accent I hear every day.
How is it over there with your New York accent? Because you kind of have even though you're not from New York, you do kind of have like a New York accent. At least how do people are people like, wow, your accent when you show up to places?
People say, I mean, I've even been on the phone. Well, first of all, okay, so coming from New York, I'm used to screaming on my phone in public, no matter where I am. You know what I mean? Like sometimes on speaker if I have to, and I've had a lot of stuff to deal with, like especially back in New York. So I've been like charging around the neighborhood outside, like, yelling on my phone. Nobody does that here. Nobody does. So they look at me like I'm going to attack them, even though I'm like, I'm on the phone. Like I want nothing to do with you. They do like the accent. I think they, it's very novel. Like I sound like very novel to them. And but what's funny is like, I really, especially, so, I basically haven't been in New York a year. Yeah. So that blows my fucking mind.
Been a year. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. No, and I miss it. And like, so I have Google Voice with my old New York number connected to my phone. And those like survey calls you get randomly from people. Like I got one about windmills, power or whatever.
Yeah.
And basically it was very clearly like this. It was a Black lady, probably from the Bronx. And she was asking me these questions about something I know nothing about, but I kept answering them because I missed the accent. I miss talking to American accents a little bit. Like once you realize like you're not around that at all anymore, I just wanted to hear the sound of her voice. So I answered like 8 questions. And then I was like, listen, I'm really sorry. I gave you my honest answers for all of those things. I really don't know what you're talking about. I'm from America. I haven't been in America in a very long time. And I just wanted to listen to the sound of your voice. And of course she thinks I'm a fucking psycho, but it's you don't know what you got until it's gone. That I think is the saying,
Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah, because I'm sure everyone there was very quiet and soft spoken. Let me ask you, what do you think was your favorite part of this movie? Your favorite scene? Your favorite moment?
I liked the dogs eating the food off the table near the beginning before the mom announces to her that the suitors are coming. And the dogs are like running. I know I'm just a dog person. You have like 14 dogs, so you know how it is.
I have 2 dogs and a cat. Yes.
2 dogs and a cat. 2 dogs.
I wish I had 14 dogs. It'd be great.
I know they're great, right? But I like that, and and the little brothers, and I liked how they were turned into bears, and I liked them just the whole shit with her when her mom was a bear.
Yes, and her and the mom like bonding in nature, I thought was cool. That was a very nice scene.
Yeah, I liked that. Yeah.
My only thing with the movie is that like she's not that sympathetic because the mom is not really that bad. I think they should have made the mom a little bit more like when the mom's getting sick off the pie and she's kind of like smiling. I'm like,
yeah,
I would feel so bad right now. Like she's not like a monster. She just is like, look, this is what you have to do, and I'm sorry, honey, but like we have to do this. But she's not like, I would have made the mom a little bit more like nastier. I don't know, to feel more. I didn't really feel sympathetic that much towards the Meriden or the princess, the Scottish princess.
She didn't give a fuck at all that her mom was, you know what I mean? I'd start to think,
mom was just about to die. Yeah, because I don't know what's going to happen to the mom. Yeah,
and you got her from a witch. You're not supposed to take anything from strangers. I don't know if like kids know that. And I also kept thinking like, how the name Merida has got to be somewhat difficult for kids to say. Because I was thinking about how I was a kid and like, you're talking like Belle, like one syllable names, Belle, Beast, Jasmine, I guess, if you want to go a little crazy. But I was like, Merida, there's got 3-year-olds are going to struggle with that. But whatever.
Well, she's not as big as Elsa or Belle or Ariel, because those are like fun names to say. And fucking
they fucked up there. They should have given
Merida.
her
I've never met a young, well, not that I meet a lot of little girls, but you get my point. I've never met a parent who is like, my child's favorite Disney princess is Merida from Brave. I've never met that. I actually have a funny story about this movie, because I started this podcast. My mom collected old Disney films, and then I missed her last summer, and I noticed I was only missing 10 movies. So I went on Amazon and bought them all so I could have the whole collection. And then I started, awesome. And then I said, I haven't watched a lot of these. My mom would just buy them. I'm gonna watch all of them, and I'll never forget. She watched Brave. I was at Caroline's one night, and I came home and go, "How is it?" And she goes like, "Oh, you'll never believe what they did to the mother. Oh my God, I hope you would never do anything like that to me." So I thought that the big twist was she was actually going to kill the mom or something to get out.
Yeah.
And I'm like gearing up for like this heartbreaking twist. And when she becomes a bear, I was like, why did my mom think this was like the worst? My mom was like so like disturbed by, I don't even want to tell you what they did to the mother. It was just so awful.
I'd rather die than be furry, I guess.
She didn't want to be a bear. And I'm like, oh, I thought that she killed the mom, or she made the mom never exist, or she did. I thought she did something awful like that they couldn't reverse to the mom. And I'm waiting to like start crying. Yeah. I'm like,
I mean,
I would love my mom to be back as a bear. I'll tell you that much. Anyway.
Well, I did think that the twist of like the dad losing his leg to a bear and then having his wife be a bear, and like really recognizing that like a little kid is not going to be able to convince like a bunch of like adults with spears who want to kill bears that like that is not just a normal bear. You know what I mean? I was like, that's a pretty dark twist. I mean, Disney's known for some dark twists, but I'm like, if the dad like kills the mom, do you know what I mean? Like maybe your mom was like going that direction. Like if you turned me into something your father hated.
Well, I thought what they were going to do is Merida decides to hunt. Merida doesn't know her mom turns into a bear, and they tell her, if for your freedom, you have to like take out the bear before the princes do. And she kills the bear, and when she brings it to her dad, he goes, "Oh, I'm so proud of you." It turns into the mom. And I thought that was what was going to happen. And I know that all these twists I'm like are so dark. How do you get out of it at that point? Like, because then she'd just be like, I'm a horrible person. I should just marry this guy instead I kill my mom. But I thought that's where they were going, into these dark, messed up twists. But it was kind of lighthearted. I mean, it wasn't. I think it's a good movie for little girls to watch with their moms and stuff. I think they'd get a big kick out of it.
Yeah, it's a nice way to also, marry two different ways of life. Except not like literally. Yeah. I don't know, accepting each other for your differences and trying to find compromise and learn to grow to be the people we are together.
Yeah. Yeah. What'd you think of the animation? Because you don't watch a lot of these new CGI films, right?
I don't, and I thought the people looked creepy. If I'm
Me too. Honest. I gotta be honest with you. Yeah. I also think that's why Merida is not, because Elsa, I'm not trying to be a pervert, but Elsa's hot from Frozen, and the same thing with Belle and Jasmine. So girls are like, oh, when I grow up, I want to look like that. So that's why they like gravitate. But Merida looks like I'm not trying to be. Well, we've already been vulgar. We're talking about smoking meth. She looks like she goes and gets drunk at a bar. You know what I'm saying? She looks like she's like, she looks like she's gonna wind up dating some guy in a band or something that hits her. So I think that's the other reason why this movie didn't really catch on, is that Merida's not. Kids don't want to fuck it, so they'll fuck her. But,
kids pick up on that. They pick up on things.
Like Jasmine, if it doesn't work out with Aladdin, Jasmine has her choice of dick anywhere in the fucking world. She can get on the magic car. Same thing with Ariel, but
all
Merida,
of them do.
Yeah,
except Merida.
Yeah, if they said, "Hey, you're gonna marry a princess," and it was Merida, I'd say to my dad, "Can we get back on the boat? Because I don't know."
Yeah, no, I mean, all of them kind of looked like it was like Hey Arnold, but upgraded.
Yes, they all look like kind of like Helga and Arnold. Yes.
Yeah. But just
Mm-hmm. It's so funny because this movie was made 9 years ago, and I watched Soul.
Wow.
And they have improved the humans in CGI so much in 9 years, because like you see like scenes in Soul and they're still like kind of like hyper, or they're what is it called? Art? What's it called when the caricatures? They're still caricatures,
Right.
but they look so much more human than the characters in this movie, which they didn't really look human.
No. And I said that last night. So I like the animals though. Again, I'm turning into my mother.
The little bear boys and the bears. And the evil bear looked badass.
Yeah. I mean, I was like, this is intense. I'm kind of like, and it was sad that he died, but then also he was released and whatever,
Yeah, so it's like he was cursed.
Yeah. But yeah, that was nice. Ultimately, I was pleasantly surprised. Like when I started it and I saw the little blue lights, whatever those things were right at the beginning, I was like, ugh. I was like, there's already too much to follow, but because the Disney movies of my youth were just very like catching from the start, and you followed it all the way through. There were no dull points. This was good though. I was surprised. And I felt good.
This was good. This is the first time Pixar did a little controversy that they don't really talk about, but this was the first film with a female director, and she had a problem with John Lasseter, who got Me Too'd a few years after this and was fired. And they had a male director take her place, and he finished the movie. And I feel like now you couldn't get away with that. I feel like all if you were a female director on a Disney film and they fired you, replaced you, man, all you'd have to do is go to Twitter and make a little like those screens that someone's about to they're either in trouble, they're gonna get someone in trouble, where their tweet is just a screenshot of a block of text, and you're like, oh boy, here we go. He's either apologizing or he's accusing someone of something, and all she'd have to do is that. So there was a little. I kind of feel like if they stuck with the woman, I think it could have been stronger, because like it was kind of, I don't know, I kind of felt like it was half one person's vision, half another person's vision.
I can see that now that you say that. I can see that, and also I just on that note, whatever, the music, the theme songs, how like, these Disney movies, they have their theme songs or whatever. These ones, very bad. Very bad.
Yes.
Yeah.
I get what they were trying to do with Scotland, but I need something catchy. All right. You're not gonna be able to turn this one into a Broadway play. I mean, maybe
this isn't an Oscar. We're not getting an Emmy. This just isn't, no music awards for this.
It was very much like this. I don't know if you remember, Barnes and Nobles used to have like Celtic albums in the front.
Yes. Oh, that's like, so funny. Yeah.
Like Celtic music was kind of big in the 90s. And my mom was super into it. I still have a bunch of CDs.
Oh, that's funny.
Like the Pogues and shit. That's kind of what it felt like. This Celtic music they would have on in Barnes and Nobles to like keep you calm. And I'm like, eh.
Yeah, but if she'd been listening to the Pogues, she would have already been drinking in the movie.
Sure. Yes. Yeah, my mom kind of got into Irish rock too. Then like I think she was like, okay, this stuff's too intense. And then she went back to more the Chieftains, which is Chieftains is like kind of like folk rock, right? I don't know. I haven't listened.
But I know what you're talking about. I miss, man, there's some things you miss where you could put on the headphones and you could listen to samples of the,
Remember they also, the monks chanting was big too back in the 90s. They had those CDs of monks, the Gregorian monks had a thing. In the 90s were, River Dance. Yes, that was huge. My mom liked that too. My mom used to, it was on PBS. My mom too.
Yes. Oh, yes.
So that's kind of what this music felt like, but obviously it's in Scotland and not in Ireland. But that's kind of what the music felt like. Yeah.
Yeah.
But all in all, I think would you recommend kids watch the movie now in 2021?
Yeah, why not? I mean, I don't know. I don't know what else, if I'm going to be honest, I don't know what else is out there. If there's better shit, I'm assuming there's better shit out there.
There is better shit out there. But you know what? I mean, it's not a bad way. I also think it could have been shorter. I think an animated film should be a tight 90 minutes. That's my thing. I think comedies and animated films need to be 90 minutes on the dot.
Was it longer than that? I thought
it was like an 90. Hour 42.
Oh, really? Yeah. I mean, the thing is like, I guess and I've said this a few times already, but it's just like the ones I grew up with feel like classics. Like they're like they're timeless. Like, why did they? I didn't see the remake of The Lion King, but I'm like, you didn't need to do that. You know what I mean? Like in my mind, I'm like, The Lion King animated stands the test of time.
The problem with The Lion King is those animals don't have facial expressions. So when you try to make it realistic, fucking giraffe, you can't see his emotions on the face. They don't show their emotions. A fucking hyena, you can't. Well, maybe hyenas they smile, but you can't see like a warthog's. You don't know what a warthog is happy. Like dogs are different. Dogs, you can tell when a dog is happy. You can tell when a dog is sad. You can tell when a dog is anxious. Same thing with cats. You can't tell with these fucking animals. Like I remember my friend had a rabbit as a pet, and one time she's like, the rabbit's sad, and I'm like, it hasn't changed expression in 5 hours. What are you talking about?
Right.
But
no, yeah.
And the
they
problem
didn't need to do it.
Yeah, and then they redid Lady and the Tramp, and I'm like, well, this could work. But then they CGI the animals too much, and I'm like, just dogs. Dude, like when I got my
I didn't
dog,
know they did that.
They CGI. Yeah, when I got my dog, I was like, oh my god, this feels like a Disney character. Why does and I thought my dog was so special. No, the animators were just that good at animating animals, which is why, like, when my little dog, you met Jasmine, my little dog Jasmine runs around the house, it looks like a Disney character because they studied fucking dogs and they drew them.
Yeah.
Perfectly. You don't need to CGI. They're cartoon characters in and of themselves, dogs. You don't need to CGI them.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've learned it's like, CGI, I guess, it's definitely cool for some things, but it doesn't mean you have to like remake all the good stuff like that way. It like, unless you're going to actually blow the original out of the park, what's the fucking point?
Yeah.
You know?
And there's some, I think Brave could be a good live action movie because it's mainly humans. Yeah. But like other stuff, like even Little Mermaid, that's meant to be animated. I know they're making a. How good could the live action version be? It's like, fish can't really dance. So how the fuck? I don't know. You don't understand what I'm saying. Yeah. Katharyn, where can people find you on social media and stuff?
Where can people find me? I guess I'm on Instagram. I don't really have Twitter. I have it. I don't use it.
I hate Twitter.
But I'm on Instagram. Yeah, I'm scared of TikTok. I'm not gonna lie. I'm scared of anything. That. Yeah. So look at that. You and I are very aligned here. So I am on Instagram. I'm there. I don't know what I'm doing there. I barely know how to use it, but you can find me there at You Girl You Nasty. That's spelled EW Girl You Nasty. And I do a podcast called This American Irish Life.
Oh, your husband, right?
Yeah, with my husband. It was supposed to be about traveling, doing comedy. And at the time we didn't know each other very well. So it was going to be very fun to, talk about whatever. But now, we're married and we can't travel anywhere and comedy isn't happening. So I think it's actually also just a movie reviewing podcast, just like yours. No, I'm kidding. But who knows what it is, right?
Hey, you know what? It's interesting. Yeah, I can't do Twitter. Like, fucking some comics will post I like cheese and they'll get like 9,000 retweets and 700,000 likes, and I'll post I'll post stuff that I think are bangers on Twitter. I get like 1 like, and I'm like, you know what? I can't stand this. I can't take it. So.
Yeah, I don't know how to use the internet. I don't get it, and I never thought I'd become this person, but I am, and I think I'm okay with it. So
yeah. It's fucking rough. Guys, thank you so much for listening to the podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, if this is your first time listening, if you're a fan of Katharyn Henson, Brave, Scottish people, English people, I don't know, whatever. I have done every Disney film from Snow White to Frozen 2, and now we're doing every Pixar film. Next week, we're doing Monsters University with Comedy Pete. Your old pal, Comedy Pete.
Oh, can I say a fun fact about Pete real quick?
Yes.
So my birthday is on Friday. His birthday's this Saturday. He shares a birthday with my mom.
Wow. Oh, that's fucking great. Well,
isn't that a fun fact? He's a Capricorn and you're an Aquarius. I know you're coming up, Ray.
I'm coming up. Yeah, January 25th. It's so funny. He got nervous about doing this. And I'm like, dude, you don't have to like Disney do this podcast. It's very free. As you can tell, like it's very free form. I like to talk about like the world, what's going on in people's lives. It's like I said, it's kind of cross between Mark Maron and a film review podcast, And I only have people on I think are interesting. You proved to be very interesting, and I think he will
thanks,
too.
Ray. It was nice to see you. It really was.
It was great to catch up with you guys. Please follow me on Instagram and Twitter if you want. Ray Goots. Follow the podcast on Instagram. Goots is Disney Pod. And next week is Monsters University. We're going back to college. Hey, Katharyn, thank you so much for doing the show.
Thanks for having me, Ray.
Thanks for listening, guys. See you next week.